With just 2 weeks left to go here in the regular season, our Denver Broncos are looking to finish things off nicely. We get an opportunity to play spoilers starting today in Cincinnati against the Bengals, and then next week as well, as we'll be hosting the Kansas City Chiefs. The Bengals are having a really strong season. They are 11-4, and with a win, they are officially in the playoffs. So we're looking to spoil the fun. We don't want them to get to celebrate at their place, but obviously they know that there's a lot up for grabs in this matchup. We got to play spoiler last week. We beat the Chargers in overtime 33-27, officially sweeping the Chargers on the season. LA is in a tight battle with Kansas City for the division lead, and the two teams are now tied, with Bo Nix having the best game of his NFL career. And even though it hasn't really been the season we wanted in terms of team success, I'm continuing to be impressed by the progress that Bo Nix is making. He finished with a career high in pretty much every statistical category. Career high in passer rating, second in yards, career high in touchdowns, career high in yards per attempt, and third in completion percentage. So he was accurate, he was pushing the ball downfield, and he was impactful on the ground. Second highest rushing total of his career, and we'll see if he's able to keep things going here against Cincinnati. But before that, we've got another prospect profile. Last time around, we started to look at some of the big fellas. We looked at the tight ends in this draft class, and we looked at the offensive linemen. I think it's a strong tight end class and certainly a weak offensive line class. But today we're going to go over the defensive line, which I think is the biggest strength of this year's group. An extremely top-heavy bunch with a lot of highly projected first-round picks. But first, I want to assess our own defensive line. It's been a story of injuries with this unit, but they have played well regardless of who's on the field, particularly in run defense. We've been one of the best run defending teams in the NFL. We haven't been overly consistent in terms of the pass rush. Obviously, a lot of our edge rushers are hybrid linebackers / defensive linemen, such as Baron Browning and others. But in terms of individual production, we really haven't had that with the defensive line. Zach Allen has only played 9 games. John Franklin Myers has been really good, 14 TFLs, 4.5 sacks, and everybody else just hasn't played enough snaps. But as I mentioned, it is a top-heavy unit. As we look at the defensive line, 6 of the projected top 12 picks, 5 of the projected top 8 picks, and then the first, second, and third projected players in this class. And obviously, there's a chance that some team moves up to the top for a quarterback, but otherwise, it's going to be defensive line at the top early. And considering that we have a pick very high in this year's draft, currently projected near the top 5, and we're most likely not going to pick a quarterback in the first round, you'd think there's a good chance we choose a defensive lineman. So pay attention. There's a good shot that one of the guys we go over ends up with the Broncos. And we'll start with Mason Graham, the big defensive tackle out of Michigan, who I think will be a top 3 pick when it's all said and done. 6'3", 318 pounds. He has been a dominant player for the Wolverines over the last 2 seasons. This year, he really put it all together with his impressive ability in the run game and his polished toolbox as a pass rusher. 16 TFLs, 14.5 sacks. We got to see him up close and personal in the college football playoff and specifically the national championship, which, of course, his Michigan Wolverines won against Kansas in the national championship. He had 10 tackles, 2 for a loss, and a sack. Along with him, Shamar Turner from Texas A&M could also be a first-rounder. I don't think Turner is as clean of a projection as Mason Graham, but I would argue the upside is a little bit higher. 6'5", 290 pounds, really impressive athlete, and another guy who wins in a variety of different ways as a pass rusher. He can win with power, he can win with finesse, and he can line up anywhere on the defensive line. He is strong enough to line in the middle and match up against guards and centers, but he's quick and twitchy enough to match with offensive tackles. There are some medical question marks with Shamar Turner, though, which could scare some teams off, but the physical profile suggests that we could be looking at a top 10 pick. Him and Mason Graham could certainly be 2 players who teams very well could build their defenses around. Walter Nolan from Ole Miss is a fascinating prospect. #1 recruit in his high school class, started at Texas A&M with Shamar Turner before transferring to Ole Miss. And it's easy to see that the physical traits pop out with watching Nolan. His production's been a little bit inconsistent, although he did make some improvements this year with the Rebels, leading him to being a possible top 50 pick. 6 TFLs, 7 sacks. I wish we had more consistency, especially in the run game, but he's a special athlete with a really high ceiling. Junior Tafuna from Utah is up next. He's had a terrific season for the Utes, playing himself into second-round conversation. I think the floor with Tafuna is really high because you're going to get someone who's going to be a consistent run defender right away, but also provides ability as a pass rusher. He's not some overly athletic freak, and he is already 24 years old, which is one of the concerns with him. Certainly an older prospect in this year's draft, but this might be the oldest NFL draft ever, so if there's a year to be 24, it's probably this one. Riley Mills from Notre Dame, really impressive athlete. Tyreek Williams from Ohio State's had a good year. Harold Cross, a little bit undersized, but he's a good player. If you're looking for a sleeper, Marley Cook from Miami, another guy who's undersized, but has had great production with double-digit sacks. Let's move over to the edge rushers, the biggest strength in this class, a very top-heavy group. It's not overly deep, but there's 5 or 6 guys at the top who could be stars. And obviously, we've got to start with Jordan Burch, who's the best player in this draft, the presumptive #1 pick. He has had maybe the best defensive single season in the history of college football, and he checks off all the boxes in terms of what you look for in an NFL profile. 6'6", 290, elite athleticism across the board, and look at the player grades. A. This dude is going to be a monster immediately. Burch finished the season with 24.5 sacks, breaking the all-time record set by Terrell Suggs, the former NFL Defensive Player of the Year nearly 2 decades ago at Arizona State. Burch is a former 5-star recruit, so this isn't somebody who's completely come out of nowhere, but he never really put it all together until this season. He's a very impressive athlete for his size, as we touched upon earlier. He wins in every which way as a pass rusher. He's got a filthy spin move, pretty good run defender as well with 17 TFLs. He recorded at least 1 sack in all 14 games he played in, showing unbelievable consistency. Now, he is 23 years old, and as I mentioned, he hasn't really broken out until this season, a 5th-year breakout. But for a player of his caliber, I think that's a nitpicky complaint. The New England Patriots are most likely to get the #1 overall pick, and since they already have their presumptive franchise quarterback, it works out for them, and I would be shocked if Jordan Burch ends anywhere else but the New England Patriots. For teams looking for a dynamic defensive lineman who missed out on Burch, such as possibly the Broncos, Nick Scorton from Texas A&M will be a great consolation prize. Scorton, the transfer from Purdue, has had a phenomenal season at A&M, transitioning to the SEC with no problem. 6'4", 280, great size, great bend off the edge. He wins with finesse, he wins with power, he's a good run defender, and in the 2 games that we watched him, the SEC Championship and the first round of the College Football Playoff, he looked like a game wrecker. Texas A&M lost both of those games, but it certainly was not his fault. He's only 21 years old as well, so he's got 2 years compared to Jordan Burch that could help him with his development, and he should certainly be a top 5 pick. Behind him, we've got James Pierce Jr., maybe the most impressive athlete in the entire class. Look at his grades. Pretty much all elite across the board. And when you watch him on film, the athleticism certainly pops. 6'5", around 245-ish pounds, so he's a little bit undersized in terms of his weight. He doesn't have the elite play strength that you look for from a dynamic edge rusher, but he's the most athletic guy on the field, and his lack of strength is made up by his otherworldly burst and get-off the line of scrimmage. He wins in very different ways compared to other edge rushers. He's a very different prospect compared to most defensive ends, but he finds a way to make it work, and I think his athleticism will certainly translate to the NFL level. I don't think there's a more polarizingly different player than Deion Walker to a guy like Pierce. Walker is a full 100 pounds heavier at 6'3", nearly 350 pounds. Now, he's not really an edge rusher, as you can imagine with his weight. He's more of a defensive tackle. But this is somebody who's obviously a terrific run defender, as you can imagine with how big he is. But he's a dynamic pass rusher as well. He knows how to win with power and leverage getting to the quarterback. Usually, when you look at 350-pound defensive linemen, they're not going to fill up the stat sheet. They're going to clog rushing lanes as a nose tackle. But that's not Deion Walker. He is an impressive pass rusher, 11.5 sacks. Another guy like James Pierce, who's very unique. You don't find players like him often, so it's a little bit of a gamble, but it could be worth the swing on upside. Ashton Gillette from Louisville is the other first-round projected pass rusher. I don't think he's quite on the level as the first 4 defensive end prospects we talked about, but he is still really, really good. He wins in every way as a pass rusher with power, with finesse. He is just as impressive athletically as the first 4 guys we talked about. and he has been more consistent throughout his collegiate career as a pass rusher compared to a lot of them. He is 22 years old, a full 4-year senior, but he is a really impressive prospect who certainly should be a first-rounder. Now, after those top 5 guys, it's a major drop-off. As I said, I don't think it's a particularly deep group in terms of the edge rushers, but there are a couple day 2 guys I like, including Ahmed Hassanin from Boise State, looking to be the first Egyptian-born player drafted in the NFL. Really smart player. He has great power and can win with some finesse as well. He's a solid but not spectacular athlete, and his production, again, solid but not spectacular. But again, he does check off most of the boxes, and he should be the highest drafted player from Boise State, unless their star running back Ashton Jeanty declares for the draft, which is still very much a question mark. Looking down the board a little bit, a few other possible top 100 picks with Kalen Woolard from Oklahoma. David Vann from NC State is a guy I like quite a bit. Landon Jackson from Arkansas, very toolsy player, has a lot of upside. But the guy I really want to talk about is Chris Hardy from Ole Miss. I really like his story. Spends 4 years at Jacksonville State, transfers to Ole Miss, where he's presumably behind more physically gifted edge rushers, but he outproduces all of them, finishing with a very impressive 13.5 sacks. He's kind of a one-trick pony as an edge rusher. He relies on his power, but he has made that a really impressive force that SEC offensive tackles have not been able to stop. He doesn't have the elite athleticism that you look for in an edge rusher, but his story, his will and determination going from an unknown prospect at Jacksonville State to now a top 100 pick, and his consistent work ethic, I think is going to be something that teams really like. Looking down the board at some day 3 guys, Jack Sawyer from Ohio State could be a name to watch, former #1 high school recruit, somebody who's got a really high ceiling but hasn't put it all together with the Buckeyes. Elijah Alston from Miami is pretty solid too, but he was the only other player there. I told you, it is not a deep group in terms of the defensive ends. And then as we move over to right end, the non-first rounder who I would look out for is Princely Umanmielen, another Ole Miss player. That's 3 Ole Miss defensive linemen likely to go in the top 100. What do all 3 of them have in common? They just transferred to Ole Miss this year. With Umanmielen, he comes from the University of Florida, where he could have entered the draft last year, and I think he could have been a top 50 pick, but decides to stay in school, go to a different school in Ole Miss. This is somebody who relies on finesse and quickness, and he has showcased that at a high level over the last couple of years, first at Florida and now here with the Rebels. I think you're looking at a fringe top 50 pick. I could see a team picking him kind of early in the second round, though, given the lack of depth in this edge rushing class. Josiah Stewart, undersized, had a great year at Michigan. And then once again, a big drop-off. And the funny thing with the lack of depth that this defensive end class has, when we look at the outside linebackers in the next episode, many of whom are also edge rushers, it's the polar opposite. It's not a very top-heavy group. I think there's only one surefire first-rounder with Michael Williams from Georgia, but it's a really deep group with a lot of good players and fringe top 100 picks who should make impacts at the NFL level. With that, let's take a look at our matchup against the Bengals, who are currently the 5 seed in the AFC. And as I mentioned, with a win, they are officially in the postseason. They started the year off rough, as they usually do, opening up 2-3. But since then, they have gone 9-1, with their only loss being a 1-point defeat against the Titans. That includes an 8-game win streak that they had in the middle of the season. And obviously, we know this team is led by one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, Joe Burrow, who is one of the most accurate and poised players at the position in the league. And he's got some good weapons at his disposal. Zach Moss out of the backfield. At wide receiver, obviously they've got one of the best receiving rooms in the NFL, headlined by the All-Pro Jamar Chase. Obviously, we're going to have Surtain match up with Chase for most of the game. But otherwise, this gives guys like T. Higgins an opportunity to really play well, or maybe Michael Thomas, or possibly one of the young guys like Jermaine Burton or Andre Yoshivash. The defense is pretty solid as well. Trey Hendrickson has been one of the most underrated guys in the NFL for years now. They've invested a lot into this secondary with guys like Cam Taylor-Britt, Dax Hill, Jordan Battle, Geno Stone, and that's become a really solid unit for them. And the offensive line has significantly improved. I'm a huge fan of their first-round pick, Amarius Mims, the talented right tackle out of Georgia. So let's get this show on the road. Bengals opening up on offense. Burrow going short. That's the fullback, Xander Horvath, and he loses 3. Cody Barton brings him down, and so it is now a 3rd and 13 for Cincinnati. Burrow looking downfield. Wide open is Jamar Chase. The Broncos were in a zone coverage there. And, well, I guess there was nobody who was supposed to be near Jamar Chase whatsoever. Somebody missed their spot, and the Bengals keep the drive going. Chase again up the middle to the 9, and Cincinnati is moving it really well down the field here on this opening possession. Now at the 4, 2nd and goal. Burrow looks to throw it. Open in the end zone. It's Mike Gesicki, the veteran tight end, in for the score. And the Cincinnati Bengals march right down the field. They open this game up with a touchdown. They lead 7-0. And let's now take a look at the Bronco offense. Bo Nix coming off a career day in the win against the Chargers last week. Whoop, whoop. Nice move here by Josh Reynolds. Not necessarily known for his ability after the catch, but he makes a great play there past the 50. And the Broncos are looking pretty good here on their opening possession as it's a screen for Javonte Williams. Breaks the tackle from Jermaine Pratt and brings it to the 11. We'll see if Denver can respond in the red zone, looking to tie it up. Bo Nix under pressure. He is sacked. It's Tyus Bowser, the Koopa King, in the backfield to bring him down. 3rd and 17. Screen for Mims, who had the big 73-yard score a week ago. Doesn't get much on the screen. He's wrapped up by the former first-rounder out of Michigan, Dax Hill. And that'll bring out the field goal team as the kick is good for Will Lutz. And the Broncos are on the board. They have to settle for a field goal, and it's 7-3. Burrow in the zone to start this drive, but Nick Bonito has other plans as he is in the backfield with the sack, winning the rep against Orlando Brown with ease. 3rd and 12. Burrow dumps it off for Zach Moss, and he doesn't get much. Wrapped up quickly on the play by a number of Bronco defenders, and that'll wrap up the first quarter. 7-3 in favor of Cincinnati. A good ending to the quarter for us, though, with a nice opening drive and then a 3-and-out defensively. We'll see if the offense can look to get some more points, maybe take the lead here in the second as we continue to try to build a strong end to our regular season. And Bo Nix is intercepted by Logan Wilson. He takes a shot at the end of the play from Miners, and it looks like he's hurt. But a big play for Logan Wilson. Bo Nix makes the complete wrong read. And I think part of the blame goes to the tight end, Adam Troutman, as well. He made a really slow cut on the route. Still not a good throw by Nix as the Bengals get a nice first down run with Chris Evans. He's the second running back today with Chase Brown out of the lineup. Burrow on the run. In the back of the end zone. It's caught for a touchdown. Eric All Jr., the rookie out of the University of Iowa, with the score. Tight end University, and the Bengals lead it 14-3. Now the question is, did he get both feet in bounds? That's a close call, and the booth is going to take another look at this to see if he had possession. They might be reviewing if he caught the ball as well. I saw it bobble as he hits the ground. I think that's what might be reversed, but ultimately they don't think there's enough evidence to overturn. That play will stand, and it's 14-3. I feel like he dropped it. I think it should have been overturned. But Denver now has it. Here's Bo Nix on the run, trying to fight for yardage, and he nearly gets it, wrapped up by Daxton Hill. Shy of the first down marker. That'll lead to a punt, and the Bengals get it. Burrow, play action, doesn't fool Denver. Jonathan Cooper in the backfield with the sack. That was on a 3rd down as well. Interesting decision there on the play call. The Bengals wanting to go for the big play rather than just get the easy first down, and it backfires. Bo Nix is sacked now. The Bengals retaliate in the backfield, bringing him home. That's Joe Bakke Jr. with the sack, getting some reps at linebacker with the injury to Wilson. 3rd and 9, Jaleel McLaughlin with the first down. The Bengals did not have that intermediate area of the field from the line of scrimmage to the first down marker covered, and it backfires. Nix on first down under more pressure, looking up the middle. He's got Adam Troutman, and he gets it inside the 25, quickly wrapped up by Jermaine Pratt. Denver looking to move quick, only 34 seconds left in the half. They've got one timeout, but clock's not really an issue. They've got it at the 3. McLaughlin, not in, but he is close. Down at the 1, we go no huddle, deciding not to use the timeout, and that might have been a big mistake. Look at the clock. There's 4 seconds left. Now, since we do with the one timeout, we can afford to run another play here. QB sneak, Nix is in, touchdown Broncos. We nearly completely mismanaged the clock there, but luckily, Bo Nix is able to get the rushing score off of the sneak, and we've got ourselves a game going into halftime, 14-10. If there's one thing that's really impressed me about this Broncos team this year is that they have played up and down to their level of competition. They have managed to stay in games against really good teams. For our halftime report, we'll start in the Big Easy in New Orleans. A defensive battle so far, with the only touchdown being this run by Alvin Kamara. It's a 7-0 lead here for the Saints against our division rivals, the Las Vegas Raiders, who of course have a record of 5-10. Obviously, I still want to win our games because I think that would be more beneficial than tanking. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't want both of these teams to win. Now, both teams did beat us in the regular season, so if we hit the same record as them, we would pick before them. Two more not-so-good teams facing off in Tampa Bay. Look at this throw from Bryce Young to the rookie Xavier Legette for the touchdown. This duo has been so impressive for Carolina, and obviously it hasn't been a great season for them, but the Young and Legette connection strikes hope in the hearts of Panther fans. They lead at 17-7. And finally, in Pittsburgh earlier today, we've got a final. Patrick Mahomes with 5 touchdowns is most impressive. This one right here for the rookie Xavier Worthy. And the Kansas City Chiefs blow out the Steelers. They win at 45-16. And with that, the Chiefs are in a position where if they win next week, they clinch the division. You know who they're playing against, right? They are headed to Denver to face off against the Broncos. So it's us who will be in the way of them looking to win the 20,000th consecutive AFC West title. Into the third quarter, we're certainly hanging in there. Certainly hasn't been a perfect start. I think Bo Nix has been good, minus the interception, which was admittedly one of his worst throws of the year. But otherwise, he's been really efficient, really solid. And then defensively, it's all about stopping Joe Burrow. The run defense has had another good game. The Bengals aren't trying to run the ball, as a lot of teams have done against us. They're focusing on throwing it, which works for them considering they have such a great passing attack. Denver starts with it. Nice play after the catch by Lucas Kroll, the talented tight end who's played well in limited spurts this year. We want to continue to get him some reps. Nix on third down on the run. He will throw it out of bounds. He was looking for Kroll again. And Denver's going to take the points. It's a 55-yarder for Will Lutz. Looks perfect in terms of accuracy, but it's off the crossbar and no good. It was short from 55. Accuracy's been spotty for Lutz this year. Distance has not. I figured if he missed it, it would be because it was inaccurate, but that's not the case. Remains 14-10. Bengals back with it. 3rd and 6. That one is batted down by Patrick Surtain, who, of course, has had a tremendous year. He has certainly held Jamar Chase in check today. Denver gets it back halfway through the third. Nix, under pressure from Hendrickson, goes short for McLaughlin. And even though that was supposed to be a deep passing play, having a guy like McLaughlin, who's a consistent underneath receiver, can be such an asset. Because when Trey Hendrickson wins his rep on the line of scrimmage, Bo is somebody he can dump it off to and still get a first down. 2nd and 7, Nix looks to throw it again. Under more pressure, he's got it for Cortland Sutton, who had a tremendous game against the Chargers last week, including the game-winning touchdown in overtime, one of 2 scores he had in that game. 3rd and 10, screen from McLaughlin. He will not get the first down. He gets around 4. The Bengals are there to stop him shy. It's Dax Hill, who's been all over the field today. And the field goal unit returns. Lutz missed on the last possession. This time it's good from 40. And the Broncos bring it within 1, continuing to dig into this deficit as it's 14-13 with 2 minutes to go in the third. Bengals back with it. Burrow under pressure. He is sacked. Nick Bonito with his 2nd of the ball game. It's a loss of 12. 3rd and 22. Burrow has to throw it away. That was Bonito again, who has been dominant this afternoon. He has annihilated the left tackle Orlando Brown on a consistent basis. Denver back with it, but not for long. It's Trey Hendrickson with the sack on Bo Nix. And that'll wrap up the third. We've got ourselves a good one here in Cincinnati. 14-13. Bengals lead it. And again, with a win, they are back in the postseason after missing it a year ago. So Cincinnati starts with possession here in the fourth quarter at the 20 on first down. Burrow, quick throw up the middle. That'll go for a nice gain to the 37-yard line. They do have an injury, though, to the offensive line. Certainly not ideal for Cincinnati, but they do get 17 yards. Play action on 2nd and 5. Burrow looking downfield. It's Michael Thomas to the 38. Thomas, signed late in the preseason out of free agency, has been a solid addition to this Bengals offense, helping mentor some of their young receivers. 3rd and 2, up the middle. It's dropped. It looked like Eric All had it in his hands, but it was jarred out, and the Bengals are going to go for it. Gutsy decision on 4th and 2. I'd probably kick it here if I was them up by 1. I'd try to trust the defense. Burrow under pressure, goes short. It's Zach Moss with it down the field, breaks the tackle, and is wrapped up at the 1 by Surtain. So the Bengals do a good job by not listening to me and converting on 4th down. We'll see if they can punch it in. 1st and goal. Burrow looking, corner of the end zone. Michael Thomas with the touchdown. He might have hurt his toe on that play, out for the year. We'll see you next year, slant boy. Wasn't a slant, though. And it's now an 8-point lead for the Bengals. Denver back with it, 2nd and 5. Nick's up the middle. He's got his former Oregon teammate, Troy Franklin, who makes a nice play after the catch, bringing it to the 46-yard line for a 1st down. Denver down by 8, needed a touchdown and a 2-point conversion to tie. McLaughlin loses yards on 1st down. A number of defenders were there in the backfield to bring him down. The offensive line has had one of their worst games of the year this year. They have struggled. 2nd and 11. Bo Nix sacked again. The Cincinnati pass rush continues to dominate, and it's 3rd down and 21 for the Denver offense. Here is Nix looking to throw it with around 3 minutes to go under so much pressure. He has to get rid of it, avoiding the sack. You can make the argument to go for it here because we might not get it back on offense, but it's 4th and 21. Our defense has been good. The Bengals haven't tried to run the ball against us. Let's trust the defense to get a stop. They're going to throw it on 1st down. Short pass caught by Moss, and he loses yardage. Chris Abrams' drain brings him down, and we're not going to waste any time. We're going to call that first timeout immediately. 2nd and 13, they go back to the air. Burrow looking. Sideline, it's caught for a 1st down. Nice throw and catch for the rookie receiver, Jermaine Burton. Drafted in the 3rd round out of the University of Alabama. Before that at Georgia. On 1st down, throws it into the ground. I get that our run defense is one of the best in the NFL, but even in a chew clock situation, the Bengals have not ran it once. That should say something. Burrow is sacked by Jonah Ellis and friends. Denver calls a timeout. They're 2nd, and it's 3rd and 16. The Bengals are an empty. Burrow under more pressure, nearly sacked again by Ellis. Floats it up. Down the field, it's broken up for Jamar Chase. So on a possession where the Bengals have 5 offensive plays where they should be chewing clock, they threw it all 5 times, and we did have to use 2 timeouts, but barely any time was taken off, and the offense gets it back in an 8-point game. Touchdown and 2-point conversion ties it. Here is Nix on the run, under pressure with a 1st and more, sliding near the 50. Let's say we do score a touchdown, get the 2-point conversion, tie it, and it goes to overtime. That would be our 6th overtime game of the year, which breaks an NFL record for most overtime games by one team in a single season. A loss of 4 on the screen for McLaughlin. 3rd and 14 now. Clock is ticking. We're trying to hold on to that timeout for as long as possible. Here is Nix. Under pressure. It is caught. Nearly for a 1st down. A risky throw hauled in by Sutton. 4th and 2. We got to go quick. McLaughlin up the middle. 1st and more. They were not expecting run. And we're going to call our last timeout. Try to regroup and figure out what the plan is here for these next couple of plays to try to get it into the end zone. I don't think time is of the essence yet with 46 seconds, but obviously we've got to be smart. Nix, sacked on 1st down. Now time certainly is of the essence. Got to go no huddle, and there's only around 20 seconds left. So we've got to basically throw it deep for the end zone because at the very least it's incomplete and the clock stops so we can regroup a little bit. And we've got 2 plays here. Do we go for something to the sidelines or do we throw it deep? Nix, looking, wants it all. It is intercepted. Von Bell picks it off, and that'll do it. The Bengals are headed back to the playoffs. Denver gave them all they could bargain for, but Cincinnati takes it home 21-13. Nix with his 2nd interception of the game, and it ultimately ends up being the clincher for Cincinnati as the Broncos fall to a record of 5-11. With just 1 game left to go. But again, we continue to fight hard against the NFL's best teams. I mean, we beat the Chiefs. We beat the Chargers twice. We almost beat the Ravens, who are 14-1 in Baltimore. And now here in Cincinnati, in a must-win game for the Bengals. And we were in it up until the very end for the most part. I thought this was going to be a high-scoring affair, but it ended up being a defensive battle. Only 7-3 in the second half. I get the passer rating doesn't look great for Bo. I thought he played a fine game. The first interception was a brutally awful play. The second one, he had to throw it up. What else was he going to do? Joe Burrow with a great game. Neither team really ran it all that well. And there was no super impressive receiver. The leader in yards was Troy Franklin for both teams with 43. Mims was quiet. Sutton was quiet. Jamar Chase was quiet. Shout out Surtain. And T. Higgins isn't even here. He did not catch a single pass. Riley Moss has had an up and down season, but I give him a ton of credit. He had T. Higgins in hell today. Both pass rushes were really good. 5 sacks for the Bengals, 4 for the Broncos. And as you noticed there with Riley Moss, it said he had 10 deflections on the year, and he ended up getting 2 skill points out of it and nearly 10,000 XP. Chris Abrams-Drain, also with 10 deflections, got 14,000 XP. So our corners are going up in rating. That's certainly good to see. What's not good to see is the starting center, Sam Mustipher, hurting his elbow. We're going to put him on IR, get the extra roster spot for Week 18. As we take a look at our scores around the NFL here in Week 17, as for your players of the week, we've got Dak Prescott and Mac Wilson in the NFC, Lamar Jackson and CJ Mosley in the AFC. And with that, we've got one game to go. The Kansas City Chiefs, if they win, they clinch the division. We've also got another prospect profile. We're going to go over all the other remaining positions, outside linebacker, inside linebacker, and the secondary. So it should be a fun episode. And along with that, and the game against the Chiefs, we're also going to briefly recap the season, which includes our stud and dud of the year voting. For those of you who may be new and don't know what that is, I'll explain in the next episode. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Peace out.